Hello all, welcome to the next session on storage area networks. In this session, let us continue our module 5. So in this particular session, we will be discussing about storage security domains. So we will be trying to understand what are the storage security domains do we have, and how can we ensure that we can minimize the threats, assess the vulnerabilities, as well as we can mitigate the risks involved in these particular security domains. Now, talking about the storage security domains, there are basically three types of domains that we are going to discuss in this particular module. So first one we have is something called as the application access domain. Second one we have something called as the management access domain, and the third one we have is something called as the backup, recovery and archive domain. So to identify the threats that apply to a storage network, access paths to data storage can be categorized into these three domains, that is the application access domain, the management access domain and the backup, recovery and archive domain. Now the first security domain involves application access to the stored data through the storage network. The application access domain, it involves application access to the stored data through the storage network. The second security domain, that is the management access domain, includes the management access to storage and interconnect devices and to the data residing on those devices. This domain is primarily accessed by storage administrators to configure and manage the environment. So this management access domain, it includes the management access to the storage and interconnect devices and to the data residing on those devices. The third domain that we have is backup, recovery and archive domain. Now this domain consists of the backup, replication and the archive access. So in the previous modules we had already discussed the backup process. We have already discussed how can we replicate the data and what do you mean by archive. Now all these things, the backup, replication and the archive access, will be consisted in the third domain, that is the backup, recovery and archive domain. Along with the access points in this domain, the backup media also needs to be secured. So these are the three key storage security domains that we will be discussing in this particular chapter. Let us first try to understand how can we secure the application access domains. So in the previous video lecture we had discussed the risk triads. We had understood what are the three different triads we have, or the three different elements of the risk triad. We had the assets that we need to protect, we had the threats to these assets in the form of attacks, and we also had something called as the vulnerabilities. So what are the loopholes in the system? So let us try to understand how to secure the application access domain. The application access domain may include only those applications that access the data through the file system or a database interface. As shown in this particular diagram here, so it shows the application access in a storage networking environment. Now we have two hosts here. The host A can access all V1 volumes and the host B can access all the V2 volumes. Now these volumes are classified according to the access level, such as the confidentiality, restricted and public. Now some of the possible threats in this scenario could be host A could be, or it can be host A spoofing the identity or elevating the privileges of host B to gain access to host B's resources. So host A may spoof the identity of the other host, that is host B, in order to gain the access to the resources of host B, which is V2 volumes in this case. Another threat could be that an unauthorized host can gain access to the network. Okay, some unauthorized host can gain access to the network. The attacker on this host may try to spoof the identity of another host and tamper with the data, snoop the network, or execute a denial of service attack. So these are the possible threats in case of application access domain. First threat is one host may spoof the identity of the other authenticate or authorized host, and in order to gain access to that particular host resources, Similarly, some other unauthorized host may gain access to the network, and the attacker may try to spoof the identity of another host and tamper with the data, snoop the network, or execute a DOS or the denial of service attack. Also, any form of the media theft could also compromise the security. Okay, now the unauthorized host could also perform some media theft. These threats can pose several challenges to the network security, therefore they need to be addressed. Whatever threats we just discussed, that is spoofing one host, spoofing the identity of the other host, or there may be some totally unauthorized host which gains access to the network and can perform a variety of attacks such as denial of service attack. You can snoop on the network and tamper with the data. Let us see how can we control the user access to the data. Access control services regulate the user access to the data. Okay, the access control services regulate the user access to the data. These services mitigate the threats of spoofing host identity and elevating host privileges. Both these threats affect data integrity and the confidentiality as well. Access control mechanism used in the application access domain are user and host authentication, that is what we call as the technical control, as well as the authorization, that is what we call as the administrative control. We discussed the different types of controls in the previous video session while we were discussing about the vulnerabilities. Now, the access control mechanisms that is used in the application access domain are user and host authentication as well as the authorization. These mechanisms may lie outside the boundaries of the storage network and require various systems to interconnect with other enterprise identity management and authentication systems. For example, systems that provide strong authentication and authorization to secure user identities against spoofing. Right, so in order to control the user access to the data, so what might be the threats if unauthorized user gain access to the data? So one might be spoofing user identity, which may compromise the integrity and the confidentiality of a system. So second threat might be elevation of user privilege. What do you mean by elevation of user privilege? One user may be privileged to access only a certain amount of data. Now that particular user may try to elevate his privileges, his permissions, in order to gain access to the data which he is not supposed to. This again compromises the integrity and the confidentiality of the system. Now what are the available controls we have? We have user authentication and user authorization. I hope you know the difference between authentication and authorization. Not all authentic users are maybe authorized to access the data, and vice versa. Not all authorized users may be allowed to may be provided with the or may have been certified as authentic users. Right? There is a difference between user authentication and user authorization. So these are the two available controls that we can have. So user authorization comes under both technical as well as the administrative control, whereas user authentication is classified under the technical control. What are the examples we can have? Examples is very strong authentication. So we need to have such a strong authentication mechanism so that we can totally avoid spoofing attack. Then we also have the network attached storage device, or the NAS devices, which uses something called as the access control list. NAS devices support the creation of something called as the access control list that regulates the user to specific files. So using network attached storage, users will be mapped to only a certain amounts of files to which they can access. Or something like the user can see only the files that is mapped to, other files will be totally hidden. So that can be achieved by something called as the access control list that is implemented using the network attached storage devices. Okay. Now the second type of security measure that we need to think about is how to control the host access to the data. So whatever we discuss in this table, the left table, that is about the user access to the data, controlling the user access to the data. Now let us try to understand how can we control the host access to the data. Different storage networking technologies such as the iSCSI, fiber channel, or the IP based storage, they use different types of authentication mechanism such as the challenge handshake authentication protocol, or we can call it as CHAP, or they use fiber channel security protocol, that is FCSP, and IP security respectively to authenticate the host access. There are different types of storage networking protocols or authentication mechanisms in order to authenticate a host to access a given data. Now what about the threats when a host is trying to access, or how can we control the host access to data, or what might be the threats from the unauthorized host? Let us try to see that. First threat may be spoofing the host identity. As we just discussed in the previous slide, one host may try to spoof the identity of some other host. Okay, so again it compromises the integrity and the confidentiality. Second threat is again elevation of host privilege. Earlier we discussed elevation of the user privilege. Now one host may elevate its privileges in order to gain unauthorized entry or unauthorized access to some data to which it is not supposed to access. Again it compromises the integrity as well as the confidentiality. What are the available controls do we have? So zoning is a control mechanism on the switches that segments the network into specific paths to be used for the data traffic. So available controls that we have is host and storage authentication. That is the technical control. Next control that we have is access control to the storage objects. So we have discussed something called as content address storage, where we store the data in terms of objects. We can have access control to these storage objects. Again it is classified as technical and administrative control. And one more control that we can have is storage access mechanisms, or storage access monitoring mechanism. So which host is accessing which data, what is the time when a host was accessing a data. So we can track all these things by performing storage access monitoring. Again it's a technical control. So what are the examples do we have? So one example is iSCSI storage, that is authentication with DHCP protocol. In SAN switches we can implement zoning, and in storage arrays we can implement something called as LUN masking, which we have discussed in module 2 if you remember. So mapping a given logical unit to a particular host. That is one more way in which we can control the host access to the data. Zoning is a control mechanism on the switches that segments the network traffic into specific paths to be used for the data traffic. LUN masking determines which hosts can access which storage devices. Then we have something called as regular auditing, which is required to ensure proper functioning of the administrative controls. This is enabled by logging significant events on all the participating devices. We need to continuously audit in order to ensure the proper functioning of the administrative control. Whatever controls that we have set, we need to audit this to ensure that these controls are working in the way they are supposed to. Then one more mechanism that we can have is by maintaining proper event logs. Event logs should be protected from unauthorized access because they may fail to achieve their goals if the logged content is exposed to unauthorized modifications by an attacker. So whatever the log files that we have, the event log files, they need to be protected in order to ensure that the content of the log files are not modified. So log file, it contributes to the accountability. By monitoring the log files, we can hold a given host or a given user accountable to a given activity. So ensuring the event log files are protected from the unauthorized access is one more mechanism we can use in order to control the host access to the data. Now let us see how can we protect the storage infrastructure in application access domain. So what might be the threats while we are protecting the storage infrastructure? So first threat may be tampering with the data in flight. So what do we mean by data in flight? While the data is being transmitted, we need to ensure that the data is not being tampered with. That is one threat, tampering of the data while in flight. It compromises the integrity of the data. Second threat that we have is denial of service, which compromises the availability. And third threat that we have is something called as the network spoofing, that compromises the confidentiality. Now what are the available controls that we have here? There are two basic controls. One is infrastructure integrity, and the second available control that we have is something called as storage network encryption. Rather than transmitting the data as they are, it's always better to encrypt the data and then transmit it over the storage area network, so that even if someone is snooping the network, they may not be able to gain, or they may not be able to understand the contents that is being transmitted over the network. So what are the examples we have? For IP storage, we have something called as IPsec or IP security. For fiber channel protocol, we have something called as fiber channel security protocol, and we can also have physical the control over the physical access to the data center, ensuring proper security, ensuring proper surveillance in the data centers. All these things again are examples as to how we can protect the storage infrastructure. Security controls for protecting the storage infrastructure address the threats of unauthorized tampering of the data in transit that leads to the loss of data integrity, denial of service that compromises the availability, and the network snooping that may result in loss of confidentiality. The security controls for protecting the network fall into two general categories. Okay, so there are two general categories for the security controls to protect the network. First category is called as network infrastructure integrity, and the second one that we have is something called as storage network encryption. So these are the two available controls that we have. Controls for ensuring the infrastructure integrity include fabric switch function that ensures fabric integrity. This is achieved by preventing a host from being added to the storage area network fabric without proper authorization. So whenever we introduce a new host to a storage area network, if you are implementing fabric switch function, so it requires that the host should be authorized before it is connected to a storage area network. That is what we call as infrastructure integrity control. It is implemented using fabric switch function. The second control that we have is called as storage network encryption. Storage network encryption methods, they include the use of IP security for protecting the IP-based storage networks and fiber channel security protocol for protecting the fiber channel networks over there. So in secure storage environments, root or administrative privileges for specific device are not granted to every user. Okay, in storage environments, so root or the administrative privileges for specific device will not be granted to every user. Instead, there is something called as RBAC or rule based access control that is deployed to assign necessary privileges to the users, enabling them to perform their roles. So every user will not have the administrative privileges. Rather than that, there is something called as implementation of RBAC, rule based access control. Depending upon the role, it's role based access control. Depending upon the role of the user, only a certain amount of privileges will be given to that particular user. That's called as role based access control, which is used to assign necessary privileges to the users, enabling them to perform their roles. So in management networks for storage systems, they should be logically separate from the other enterprise networks. The management networks for the storage systems using which we are managing the entire storage infrastructure, it should be logically separate from the other enterprise networks. For example, the IP network segmentation is enforced with the development of filters at layer 3 by using the routers and the firewalls, and at layer 2 by using virtual LANs and the port level security on Ethernet switches. Finally, physical access to the device console and the cabling of the fiber channel switches must be controlled to ensure the protection of the storage infrastructure. So this is how we can protect the storage infrastructure in case of the application access domain. Now let us try to understand how can we protect the data at rest. So earlier we discussed how can we protect the data in flight, that is in transmission, data in transit. Now let us try to understand how can we protect the data at rest. So what are the threats while the data is at rest? So again, tampering with the data at rest, again that is one threat which compromises the integrity of the data. And second one, we have something called as media theft, which we just discussed earlier, which may compromise availability, confidentiality, or both. So available controls for protecting the data at rest, so it includes encryption of the data at rest. Just like we encrypt the data over the network, we can encrypt the data at rest. That is a technical control. Second one, we need to continuously check the data integrity, and third one is data erasure. So examples include storage encryption servers. In network attached storage, we have something called as antivirus and file extension controls. In content address storage, we continuously check the content address of each and every object that we are going to store, and we use something called as the data erasure services. The most important aspect of securing the data is protecting the data held inside the storage arrays. Ultimately, storage arrays will be the last resort for storing the data. We will be storing the data in these storage arrays. So threats at this level include tampering with the data, which violates the data integrity, and the media theft, which compromises the data availability and the confidentiality. Now to protect against these threats, we need to encrypt the data that is held in these storage devices, or encrypt the data prior to being transferred to the disk. There are two ways in which we can ensure the encryption. So we can encrypt the data and then store the encrypted data, or we can store the data and then encrypt it. Okay, so that is how we can avoid or we can ensure the protection of the data at rest. It's also critical to decide upon a method for ensuring that the data deleted at the end of its life cycle has been completely erased from the disks and cannot be reconstructed for malicious purposes. So one more measure that we can carry out is, so once the life cycle of the data is over, once the data has become very old and we delete the data, we need to ensure that the data is completely removed from the system. The data is completely erased from the system. Okay, so it's also critical to decide upon a method for ensuring that the data deleted at the end of its life cycle has been completely erased from the disks and cannot be reconstructed from the malicious purposes. So sometimes even if we delete the data, there are some softwares available using which we can recover the data. So whenever we delete the data at the end of its life cycle, we need to delete in such a way, or we need to erase it from the disks completely in such a way that the data cannot be reconstructed for malicious purposes. Data should be encrypted as close to its origin as possible. If it is not possible to perform the encryption on the host device, an encryption appliance can be used for encrypting the data at the point of entry into the storage network. So encryption devices can be implemented on the fabric that encrypts the data between the host and the storage media. So these mechanisms can protect the data at rest on the destination device and the data in transit. So on NAS devices, there is a network attached storage devices, so adding antivirus checks and file extension controls can further enhance the data integrity. So in the case of content address storage, use of MD5 or SHA-256 or 256 cryptographic algorithms, so it guarantees the data integrity by detecting any change in the content of the bit frames. So in addition, the data erasure services ensures that the data has been completely overwritten by a bit sequence before the disk is discarded. So in an organization's data classification policy, it determines whether a disk should actually be scrubbed prior to discarding it and the level of erasure needed based upon the regulatory requirements. So this is how we can ensure the protection of data at rest. So by encrypting the data, by ensuring the data integrity, and by implementing proper data erasure policies. So that is about securing the application access domain. So in application access domain, we discuss how to control the user access to the data, how to control the host access to the data, how to protect the storage infrastructure, and how to protect the data at rest. Now let us move on to the next security domain that we have, that is called as a management access domain. Management access, so whether monitoring, provisioning or managing the storage resources, is associated with every device within the storage area network or within the storage network. As shown in this particular diagram, it depicts a storage networking environment in which the production hosts are connected to the storage area network. As we can see here, the production host is connected to the storage area network fabric and are accessing the production storage array A. Okay, so the production host is connected to the fiber channel switch fabric or the storage area network fabric and are accessing the production storage array A, which is connected to a remote storage array B for application purposes. So further, this configuration has a storage management platform on host A. A possible threat in this environment is an unauthorized host that may gain access to the network. So a possible threat in this environment is an unauthorized host spoofing the user or the host identity to manage the storage areas or a network. For example, an unauthorized host, which is depicted here, it can gain access to the network, it can gain management access to the remote array B. Okay, so the unauthorized host can spoof the host identity and can try to gain access to the remote replicated data or the remote storage array B. Providing management access through an external network increases the potential for an unauthorized host or a switch to connect to that particular network. So in such circumstances, implementing appropriate security measures prevents certain type of remote communication from occurring. Using something called as secure communication channels such as secure shell or SSH, or secure sockets layer SSL, or the transport layer security TLS. So we can provide effective protection against these threats what we just discussed. We can also have something called as event log monitoring. Okay, so event log monitoring helps us to identify the unauthorized access and unauthorized changes to the infrastructure. Event logs should be placed outside the shared storage systems where they can be reviewed if the storage is compromised. So in order to control the administrative access to a network against the threats such as spoofing user or administrative identity, and the elevation of user or administrative privileges, we can implement proper user authentication, user authorization, and proper audit. Examples include two-factor authentication and the certificate management. For authorization, we can implement something called as RBAC, or the role-based access control, and something called as security information management or security information event management. Controlling administrative access to a storage aims to safeguard against the threats of an attacker spoofing an administrator's identity or elevating privileges to gain administrative access. Both of these threats affect the integrity of the data and the devices. To protect against these threats, administrative access regulation and various auditing techniques are used to enforce the accountability of users and the processes. So access control should be enforced for each storage component. In some storage environments, it may be necessary to integrate storage devices with third-party authentication directories such as LDAP, that is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, or Active Directory. If an administrative user is necessity, if an administrative user is a necessity, the number of activities required administrative privileges should be minimized. Instead, it is better to assign various administrative functions by using role-based access control. Auditing logged events is a critical control measure to track the activities of an administrator. However, access to administrative log files and their content must be protected. Deploying a reliable network time protocol on each system can be synchronized to a common time is another important requirement to ensure that the activities across the system can be consistently tracked. So deploying reliable network time protocol on each system that can be synchronized to a common time is another important requirement to ensure that the activities across the systems can be consistently tracked. In addition, having something called as a security information management or SIM solution supports effective analysis of the event log files. Let us see how can we protect the management infrastructure. So mechanisms to protect the management network infrastructure include encrypting the management traffic, enforcing management access controls, and applying IP network security best practices. Restricting network activity and access to a limited set of hosts minimizes the threat of an unauthorized device attacking to the network and gaining access to the management interfaces. So access controls need to be enforced at the storage array level to specify which host has the management access to which array. Some storage devices and the switches can restrict management access to particular host and limit the commands that can be issued from each host. A separate private management network is highly recommended for management traffic. Unused network services must be disabled on every device within the storage network. This decreases the attack surface for that device by minimizing the number of interfaces through which the device can be accessed. So while protecting the management infrastructure, what might be the threats? The threats might be tampering with the data, it may be denial of service, or it might be network snooping. So tampering of data affects the integrity, denial of service compromises the availability, and network snooping compromises the confidentiality of the data. So what might be the available controls here? It might be management network encryption, or it might be management access control. So access control needs to be enforced at the storage array level to specify which host has the management access to which array. Not all hosts need to have access to all the storage arrays. A separate private management network is highly recommended for management traffic. Unused network services must be disabled, or every device within the storage network within the on every device that is there in the given storage network. This decreases the attack surface for that device by minimizing the number of interfaces through which the device can be accessed. So that is how we can ensure the security of the management access domain. We discuss how to control the administrative access and how to protect the management infrastructure. We discuss the threats, the available controls, and the examples. Now let us move on to the next or the last storage security domain that we are going to discuss, that is backup, replication, and archive domain. So BURA stands for backup, recovery, and archive domain. Securing backup is complex and is based on the backup software that accesses the storage arrays. So it also depends upon the configuration of the storage environments at the primary and the secondary sites, and especially with remote backup solutions performed directly on the remote tape device or using array based remote replication. So organizations must ensure that the disaster recovery site or the DR site maintains the same level of security for the backed up data. So protecting the backup, replication, and archive infrastructure requires addressing several threats, including spoofing the legitimate identity of a disaster recovery site, tampering with the data, network snooping, and denial of service attack, including and also the media theft. Such threats represent potential violations of the integrity, confidentiality, and availability. So it's not just the primary copy of data that we are going to protect, we need to also protect that the backup copy or the replica copy or the copy that is held in archive is also protected. So this diagram here illustrates the generic remote backup design whereby data on the storage array is replicated over a disaster recovery network to a secondary storage at the disaster recovery site. So we have the local site and we have the disaster recovery site. So here we have the data on the storage array is replicated over a disaster recovery network to a secondary storage at the disaster recovery site. In a remote backup solution, where the storage components are separated from the network, the threats at the transmission layer need to be countered. Threats at the management layer or the transmission layer needs to be countered. So otherwise an attacker can spot or it can spoof the identity of the backup server and request the host to send its data. So an unauthorized access or host can spoof the identity of the backup server and request the host to send its data. Right? The unauthorized host claiming to be the backup server may lead to a remote backup being performed to an unauthorized and unknown site. In addition, attackers can use a disaster recovery network connection to tamper with the data, snoop the network, and create a denial of service attack against the storage devices. The physical threat of a backup tape being lost, stolen, or misplaced, especially if the tapes contain highly confidential information, is another type of threat here. The physical threat of a backup tape being lost or misplaced, especially if the tapes contain highly confidential information. Another type of threat, that is another type of threat here. So backup to tape applications are vulnerable to severe security implication if they do not encrypt the data while it is backing up. So while backing up the data, don't back up the data as it is, encrypt it and then back up the encrypted copy of the data. Let us again understand what are the threats, available controls, and examples in case of protecting the storage and network infrastructure. So what are the threats we have? Threats might be spoofing the disaster recovery site identity. It may compromise the integrity as well as the confidentiality. The second type of threat that we can have is something called as tampering with the data, which affects the integrity of the data. Then we have something called as network snooping. That is also one more threat. It compromises the integrity and the confidentiality of the storage network. And lastly, we have denial of service, which affects the availability. What are the available controls we have here? First available control that we have here is primary to secondary storage access control. That is one method where we can have something called as role-based or role-based access control in order to ensure only the data or the right data is available to the right host. One more available control that we can have is something called as a backup encryption, and lastly by replication of or replication network encryption. Okay, these are the different available controls that we can have in order to implement secondary storage and the replication infrastructure. So what are the examples we have here? The first example that we have is external storage and encryption services. So apart from that, you also have built-in encryption as the software and secure replication channels such as SSL and IP security. Right. So in this particular session, we discussed what is the need for backing up the data. We discussed the different storage security domains for backing up the data. So what are the three different domains we discussed? So we discussed something called as management access domain. We discussed something called as application access domain, the management access domain, and the backup recovery and archive domain, BRU. In application access domain, we discussed what are the threats and what are the vulnerabilities and what are the examples for each and every type of data access. Right. So we discussed that. We discussed how to control the user access to the data, how to control the host access to the data, so how to protect the storage infrastructure, and how to protect the data at rest. So with this, let us just have and after that we discussed something called as the management access domain. In the management access domain, again we discussed how to ensure controlled administrative access and ensure the protection of the management infrastructure. We again discussed the threats, available controls, and the examples, and after that we discussed the backup, recovery, and archive domain. So in that again we identified what might be the threats, what is the available controls, and what are the examples. So with this, let us conclude this session, which is a session on storage area networks. Thank you.